Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. Today, I am joined by the amazing Katie Hylton, Director of Business Support Services for San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, and the newly crowned President of CASBO. I am Jeff Kubiak, and I am your host today, and we are very excited to have our friend Katie. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. It's nice to be here.
Oh, I'm so excited. So, today's conversation, we're going to explore Katie's leadership journey, get to know her a little bit, and how she personally defines radically student center, and dive into her passion and why she does what she does. And really excited. So, maybe a little bit of a walk through your journey and how you became to the place you are today.
Sure. Well, everyone kind of says we mean to be in school business. It was an accident. And certainly that was my case. I am an animal science major. I went to UC Davis and was going to work in the field of veterinary medicine. Moved to a small town with my first husband so he could see me. And then I needed work. So I went to the local school district and they said, well, you could either be as a teacher or as clerical staff. I'm like, oh, I can't talk in front of people. So good luck for the next hour or so. But so I ended up subbing as clerical and, worked my way up. I started as a 3 3/4 hour attendance clerk at Hinckley, that Hinckley with the whole Aaron Brockovich thing. My kids went to Hinckley School and was lucky to land in the warehouse full-time at Barstow Unified School District. And I was there for 8 years and liked school business and felt that was where I enjoyed being. I liked problem solving and having every day be different. Some days you could be in the warehouse. Some days you could be out delivering, everything. It was always a new experience. And so worked my way from there into purchasing at the neighboring small school district. And really that's where I found my passion for working in school facilities. They didn't have a facilities department. So the maintenance director and myself, we were it. And I learned contract management and how to go on job walks and construction meetings and take notes and write letters, and deal with all of the aspects of facilities. So built a couple of schools at Fort Irwin as part of a small school district, Silver Valley Unified. And I was there for 18 years and really thought I was going to stay there. I was in operations, supervising M&O facilities, and came open and because of the many different hats I wore, I didn't think I was going to be experienced enough, but I came in, they hired me, and I've been here since 2017.
That's an amazing journey. So, when you reflect back and think of either maybe what are a few specific moments or one or two people that are the specific mentors to help you shape your leadership style, where does that kind of pop?
Yeah, first it was at Barstow, and I was just really desperate for full-time work and knew that I needed to make myself stand out in some way so that I could stand out from the field of other people applying for the job as a warehouse clerk. And so I thought, maybe I needed to learn more about the warehouse. And this gentleman named John Howard was my first mentor, and he taught me everything about the warehouse, taught me about first in, first out. He taught me how to drive a forklift and just really just supported, whatever question I asked, he was there. And when I interviewed against 17 other women because it was a clerk position, but I was the only one that had warehouse driving, forklift driving experience. And so I think my parents kind of instilled that in me, the good work ethic, doing what you can to make yourself indispensable and trying to find those avenues where you can get someone to help support you along the way. So John was definitely my first mentor and got me into the field. And then I think my architect was a huge mentor and help when I was at the small school district at Silver Valley. And also we're going to build a preschool out of portables, 10 portables. Sounds like a small project, but for me, it was, something obviously I'd never done before. And when you're at a small school district, there's not a lot of depth in the jobs. And so everyone expects you to be the expert in the field because there's nobody else that does what you do. And so being able to go to my architect and ask him questions and just pick his brain all the time. And there was 2 or 3 different architects within that firm, and one who's still there. But they were just resources. And then my family at CASBO, reaching out to people that I worked with in committees and purchasing. Back in the day, it was called purchasing, research, and development. That we would work on web workshops for annual conference, and just having those people that I could call on when I had no idea what I was doing, and my district depended on me to know what I was doing. So you definitely need to have those resources and those connections, and that really helped me along the way.
That's phenomenal. Is John still with us?
No,
Okay.
yeah, John retired. Gosh, I've been in the business for 35 years, so.
Yeah. Well, I was just hoping that if John's listening somewhere to pat him on the back because that's pretty neat step to especially the forklift that really took you over the top in that interview. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think I drove a forklift almost every day for about 25 years. I'm coming to the county. They had a stand-up forklift, which I was, driving the sit-on old propane kind or whatever. But they didn't let me. They said, "Oh, you're not certified for this." And I'm like, "I'm your boss. Are you sure I can't drive?" So since I've been here at county schools, I have not driven a forklift, and I kind of miss it because it's a little zen moment. You can just kind of relax and just get in the moment. But yeah, I digress.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I had a little experience when I was in high school and college working at a supermarket, like in the way back, right? So moving the pallets, that was definitely interesting. Let's jump over to your current role at the San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools. That's where I've had the first pleasure of meeting you. So, in your role leading there, you're making decisions that aren't always visible to every school, every classroom, et cetera. So, like, how do you ensure those operational and financial decisions translate into better learning experience for the students?
Jeff, you're right. I mean, a lot of what we do in business support services isn't visible in the classroom. We work in the background, behind scenes, to make sure that operations are moving smoothly so that the students and staff aren't just disrupted or disengaged because something isn't working or because they're not comfortable. I've told my crews for many years, if you think that you want to have visibility and getting the pats on the backs and having that big moment of, wow, look at me. Business support services and operations is not the place for you. Usually we only get called if there's a problem, if things aren't working properly. And so a lot of those decisions that we make are just trying not to disrupt education. And so a lot of those things include keeping a clean, safe, well-maintained facility, because there's a lot of studies that show that if a student is comfortable, they can focus better on learning. They're not distracted. And so we do a lot of things in the background just to make sure that our building envelope is safe and secure. We want our HVAC systems working properly. We want our safe environment. We don't want trip hazards. We want to have temperature control, lighting, air quality, all of those things that feed into the comfort of a student and a teacher and her environment so that the student can focus on what they're supposed to be doing. Again, there's studies that show that if indoor air quality is poor, the student could get sleepy. They could, not focus properly. And so really preventative maintenance isn't sexy or glamorous or, nobody's really excited about when you're on the roof changing filters or, painting the outside. But, all of the building envelope in facilities really can help the student have a better success. I just got a principal request the other day. For some reason, there wasn't window treatments in a room and the students were getting distracted. And then, so it's like, well, let's get those in, and then let's help with the temperature in the room. Let's help keep the distractions down. If there happened to be, God forbid, some kind of, emergency on campus, let's have that classroom be able to be locked down, and not have people to be able to look in and see what's going on. So just something as simple as that's really important. But again, it's operational, and people are more interested a lot of times in the programmatic, the books, the programs, the learning, the technology, and facilities is not as much on the forefront as you might think would be important in our field.
Yeah, but it's so interesting, Katie, having, myself spent, 25 years working in public schools. So if we look at, the school itself is like a glove, what goes in, you have to give kudos to the purchasing and facilities and operations and maintenance. And, you go to a district office, and while most of those people don't have a touch of the day-to-day operations within a school, they are in turn, enhancing the lives and bettering our students too. And so I think that often goes unnoticed, but it's so important. And I want to make sure that we do recognize that.
I appreciate that because, like I said, it doesn't happen as often as we would like it to, but I mean, it's creating that safe, clean, comfortable environment. And it's also kind of providing equity, right? I mean, we're trying to have each of our schools have the same learning conditions. So no matter where the student goes, they have that same sense of a comfortable, safe, clean space where they can focus on what they're there to do, which is get educated.
Yeah, totally. And as a principal, my best friends were the custodial staff and the office staff because they got things done for me to help the students and staff. And so that's phenomenal.
When we work with schools at K-12, it's not just about furniture or design. It's about impact. Our radically student-centered approach puts students at the center of every decision. From that first conversation to the final walkthrough, we're focused on creating spaces that actually work for the kids, the teachers, and the community. So if you're looking to do more than just check a box on your next project, let's talk. Visit K12.com. That's KAY TWELVE.com and see how we're helping schools transform learning one student at a time. Because at K-12, it's not just about projects and furniture, it's about purpose.
So one of the neat things about, business services, it can sometimes like feel very, let's call it systems driven, right? You got budgets, compliance, operations. How do you bring a little fairy dust to get the human element included there?
I mean, you're right. Everything that we do in business support services and the whole business service branch is really systems driven, but the systems are there to support people. And so it's the why of what we do. And sometimes we need to remind people what the why is, and so that's, we want to try and connect those decisions that we make to a person. Our warehouse staff, we had a piece of adaptive equipment that took a while to get for one of our handicapped students. And so, I'm able to call warehouse, say, hey, we need to get in and get it delivered. This student needs, they can't move. It said they literally can't move without this piece of equipment. And because my warehouse staff goes on the campuses and they make the deliveries and they see the students, they get the importance and they got it out within the day. Purchasing, sometimes they don't get that opportunity. They're here in the office, they're writing contracts, they're creating purchase orders. So we really want to, any opportunities that come up to involve staff with site visits, I'm always encouraging them. I think they moved it to the weekend, but they used to have a reading rally where they would have it during the week and they would ask, reach out and ask for volunteers. So a couple years in a row, my whole staff, we went to the reading rally, and I have a Halloween costume as Cat in the Hat, and
Yep.
so I got everybody the red shirts with thing 1 through thing 9, and we all went as a team, and they got to see students, and some of them were helping in the snack area, and they were putting the straws in the little milk cartons, and some were reading to students, and some were just directing traffic, but they were so excited, and it's just whatever you can do to get the staff involved to where they can put that face and the name, or at least see some kiddos,
Yeah.
it means a
Yeah.
lot.
Well, I think that's really important. Anyone listening here that is a school leader or a district leader to share that, because, as a principal, I loved, either World Read Aloud Day or Read Across America or fundraisers like the evening family events. When you get people from the district office or the warehouse facilities to come out there and to be a part of that community, it really helps to strengthen and bring that outreach. It's phenomenal. I love it.
Yeah, like, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, custodians, they get to see students every day. Sometimes in the, procurement, they don't get out as much. And so the site visits are really important. We're still trying to follow the rules, trying to fit within the compliance that's required and do the reporting and all that kind of stuff. Every now and then it's really worthwhile. But yeah, the more, I had some groundskeepers at my previous, my small district wanted to do something for the kids. They wanted to paint on the football field, the ribbon, like the red ribbon, but they wanted to do it the pink ribbon for breast cancer awareness. But we couldn't find a stencil big enough. So I showed them how to do the math from, drawing it on a piece of graph paper and then extrapolating it and spraying it on the field. And we took a day, and oh my God, so much pride, and the kids loved it. And it just goes a long way to get people out connecting with, the why behind what we do.
That's awesome. So, so if you look, I know you've worked in small districts, large districts. So what separates districts that simply manage their resources from those that truly leverage them to transform learning environments and student outcomes?
A lot of it is mindset, and a lot of it, I think, is whether you're kind of being the fireman and you're just putting out fires and you're just managing the day to day, or whether you're more of a forward thinking, visionary kind of leader. And I'll be honest with you, I'm more of a firefighter in a way. I like taking care of issues and problems and figuring out the connections to get people together and take care of that problem. Sometimes the visionary, but if I have a visionary, I can figure out how to get there, right?
Yeah.
COVID gave us a lot of lessons and provided some opportunities for facilities that we might not have always had in terms of funding. So at that point, I was like, you know what, I did try to be a little visionary, but let's use some of this money for some of the infrastructure that we can't normally afford. So, we did things like we put in the touchless water fixtures, plumbing fixtures, urinals at our school sites and our admin sites. And we put in the keyless entry to reduce touch points and things like that. And so you have to manage your resources in a way because they're just getting tighter. So you have to be more creative and look at ways that you can leverage those resources. How can you think ahead, spend every dollar in a way that's getting the most bang for your buck?
Yeah, mindset matters, that's for sure. So when you hear the phrase radically student-centered, what does that mean to you, and what maybe beliefs in your daily work align with that?
Back in the day, I was taking some professional development classes and classes on the different ways that students learn. And I think, to me, that's how radically we have to think about educating our students, because not every kid learns the same way. You can't sit a student at the same desk with the same materials. Some are kinesthetic learners and they've got to be fidgeting. Some hear and learn better that way. Some need to read it. And so I think the way that we can be creative with our spaces and flexible with our spaces, so that we have one space, but it's serving 20 to 30 students and they all have their own different quirks. How is that space, really serving their needs and giving them the best educational experience? I think that's what that means to me. Just trying to be creative and open-minded.
Yes, very well said. Very well said. So if students were actually in charge of designing schools, what would be the very first thing that would appear in every building in your mind?
Oh my gosh. Maybe better food in the cafeteria. Not that our nutrition services aren't doing the best they can, but you're going to see a lot. students want to feel comfortable. Again, they want those flex spaces. They want natural light. I think they want places where they can collaborate and places where they can decompress. I was at a school site recently, and they got a grant and they're putting in wellness centers. And it was a beautiful space, and they had like a water feature. So if a kid just needed to kind of calm down and listen to the water flow, or if they needed snacks because they were hungry because they didn't get fed at home. The more I think the students would love to see more flexibility. And we see a lot of that now in the furniture, right? We see the height adjustable. We see the desks on casters so they can move around into different learning groups. And, the innovations in school furniture really have been, I think, game changing, as long as you can figure out how to fund and get those in your classrooms. Again, lighting and air quality, a lot of natural light, I think students prefer, when you go and see to some of these new modernized schools and you see the kids sitting in these soft seating groupings, talking and relaxing. And I think that's important, but I also think that it's important that we ask our kids what they want, because a lot of times we plan it from an adult mindset, or maybe the mindset of how we've always done it. I know that I've learned this over the years, that I need to ask my stakeholders and the end users, how are you going to use that space, and try to meet their needs instead of just trying to build the box the way you always built it and then see if they can fit into it.
Right. So what's the importance then of getting that student voice or empowering student agency?
I think the students bring a lot of perspective that we miss as adults, right? There's different cultural experiences, there's different needs. I didn't grow up with social media. I don't know if you did, but it's all of the different external pressures that they have. I think we need to listen to students because, one, they bring value, but also they feel heard. And I think sometimes at that age level, they don't always feel heard. And so I think it's important from an equity aspect, from a value perspective of let's find out what value they can bring to the project, and then they have pride in it as well. So I think that's important.
It's a perfect way to end. And I it's funny, like being director of business support services seems to undersell really what you do. I mean, it's business, it's community, it's school, and it's like all encumbering. And I can't help but to be blessed and grateful for the great work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. It's been very kind of you to have me, and I appreciate the time.
Yeah. So any listeners out there that would like to engage or reflect on the Better Learning podcast, feel free to write up something, and you can apply to be a guest speaker on this amazing podcast. We want to take Katie Hylton. And if you do like this podcast, please feel free to share it with your friends and neighbors, or review and subscribe. But once again, Katie Hylton, the Director of Business Support Services, San Bernardino, Superintendent of Schools, our newly crowned President of CASBO, and connect with her everywhere because she's an amazing leader. And Katie, I want to thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate it.
The Better Learning Podcast is produced by Matt Rogers and edited by Callie Jones. The views and opinions shared on this podcast are those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily represent the perspectives of their affiliated companies, organizations, or associations.